What all can be negotiated on publishing contract and what can impact you more than financial compensation? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. This is a perspective question. So they ask, what can impact you as much as financial compensation? There are a whole bunch of people who will answer this and be honest and truthful and say there's nothing that will impact me as much as financial compensation. They will give away everything in order to get more money. That, like, there are people for whom that is true. There are also people for whom the money is not as important as long as they get to maintain something else later on or something else elsewhere in the process. Not everything in a publishing contract is negotiable. So when we're talking about like royalty rates, those are pretty fixed by the publishing house. They have escalators built in that they pay to all of their authors. And I am not the lawyer on the side of this. Like I'm not the person who made these legal decisions, but I'm going to guess that customized royalty rates would actually probably qualify as like pay disparity. And so that's why these are standardized across a publishing house. Now, different publishers will have different royalty rates and different structures. You can look at things that, like, some of these smaller startups will say, hey, we don't pay you much of an advance, but we give you 50% of royalties and 50% of all subrights that we negotiate. So that's a very high royalty rate in traditional publishing. And they are saying, we are asking you to invest your product with us, but we will invest more heavily in you on the back end as a show of good faith, compared to something like a Penguin Random House, where they are saying, like, our cheapest formats you get 6%, more expensive formats you get 10, 15, 25, 35%, but they max out at that 35%. There's no way to go above that. That's just the way that it is, and those are locked in stone. There's nothing you can do about those. The advance itself is negotiable, and in fact, your agent will probably negotiate very, very hard against the advance and asking for more money. There are times in which people choose not to take the biggest advance for a bunch of reasons. This goes back to the thing I said at the beginning, that some people will say, I would prefer less money if I can guarantee I'm going to be treated a certain way. So you might want to go with a smaller publisher in order to get a more boutique experience, a more personalized experience, a better one-on-one rapport with your editor. Your editor would be working with fewer people and therefore get to know you and your story more intimately. That might be more important to you than having a bigger paycheck from a bigger publisher. It might be super, super important to you to be actively involved in the process of creating your cover. And so you're willing to go to a smaller publisher where they're going to give you a little bit more involvement and a little bit more power in that process. But then there's less money to go with it because they are a smaller publisher. But as far as things that are actually like negotiable within the contract, once you have decided who you are going with, the advance is negotiable. Which rights are going to be retained by the publisher, and therefore which rights you are going to retain as the author and be able to negotiate and sell elsewhere, that's usually up for negotiation. The number of books they are buying, the number of books that they have the option on, whether there's a right of first refusal, these things can be negotiated within the contract. These things can be, they could be just standards set by the house, and you have an agent that helps you to walk through that process and understand what can and cannot be negotiated. But if you're asking, like, what can impact you as much as money, that is totally and completely your own perspective. Like, I cannot speak to you as to what's more important to you than money. That's up to you to know and to understand.